We got a little shakeup at the top of the media poll this week that you guys put together that I had nothing to do with, and I just get to react to with everybody else. I love that. Actually, I have nothing to do with this anymore. I can
You
just
say
react to
that
wow or
you bring
oh.
it up every single week how you're not involved.
I just like to make sure people know that I'm just an innocent bystander in this poll, and nothing can be thrown at me for the poll. Now, other
See,
opinions, fine, not the poll.
Chris loves this now because he can just keep like prodding the beast, and it's not himself. It's directed at Mitchell now. It's great.
Although Mitchell will him and I will go back and forth. I'll be like, you think you do what you think's best, but I will judge you.
That's right. We judge Mitchell as well. So
don't we all? Don't we all? All right. Top 5 this week. Shake up there. North Andrew 4 votes, first place. Worth County 2, Archie 3, Platte Valley 4, Drexel 5. Obviously the big one there, Drexel. Jacob Coffey obviously with an injury now. That's really to me the biggest shakeup there is Drexel going down to number 5 this week.
Yeah, it is. I mean, so for Anthony, they've been 5 for a while. For him, he's been a little bit lower on them in the top 5. And when I say lower, I mean, as he told me earlier in the week, it's 1D, 1E kind of deal, and not them just being 5. It's someone has to be 5, so that's where you put them. I probably did the biggest flip on Drexel this week. I had them number 1 last week. They're towards the bottom of my top 10 this week. And my biggest thing is I've been a big supporter of Drexel, and they're claimed number 1 after a state championship, bringing back 6 of 8 starters. But whenever you lose the best player in the state, doesn't matter what you have behind him kind of deal, that would hurt any of these 8-man teams at the top of the state kind of deal if they lost their best player, who is 85 to 90% of their offense at times kind of deal. That's just a big question mark there for the offense and the defense. He's a really good linebacker for him too. So there's just a lot more questions I have for Drexel than answers at this point. And when I was looking through the poll, I'm like, who do I trust to win a game if they play today? If it's Albany, Drexel, probably Albany. If it's North Shelby, Drexel, I like North Shelby a lot. I think that would be a really good game. North Shelby might win that. I think Oric, same way. East Addison. I mean, I started going on the list, and I'm like, I just trust these teams at this point. They're no more known commodities with their starters at this point than what Drexel has. Drexel's still a solid football team. I'm lowering them now just because you lose the best player in the state. It's what's going to happen kind of deal. This is not a standings. It's a power rankings kind of deal with the top media poll.
Yeah. And shout out to the great people of Facebook that follow us. They had a great conversation today about Drexel. And, one gentleman believed that they should still be 1. They've won 16 straight games.
Yeah.
Won the state title. And another was like, hey, that's not how this works. It's, he said, if it was based off your record, North Shelby and someone at Oric or whatever also be at the top. And for me, like Devin said, like I talked to him today, because sometimes I feel like I've been the hater when it comes to Drexel the last few weeks.
Or just everything.
That too.
You are get off my lawn guy.
Someone's got to be.
Sure. Everybody loves everybody.
Yeah, and I just have my questions about them this year, and some things were a bit rocky towards the end, and even without Coffee, and boy, that's a huge loss. And not just rankings wise or where they stay in the poll and how they'll do, but just for the kid himself. That's so tough. So yeah, and like I said earlier, there's not a whole lot of drama outside of that. At least I guess if you go off mine, everything kind of stacked up with North Andrew. You had Archie still at 2, Worth County, Platte Valley, and all 4 of those teams are really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Even as much as I've loved North Andrew all year, Worth County may be right there. And that's what's exciting about what's coming up, because you'll see Albany and Worth County, because I don't think Worth County has truly been tested yet. Everything they've done jumps off the screen, but we'll see this week. And then, North Andrew has a bye, then St. Joe Christian, and then their schedule really picks up with, Stanberry, Worth County, and then Albany, I believe.
Yeah.
So they're really going to be tested. So in the next month or so, we're going to learn a lot about the GRC, which is right now, and as usual, where the heart of the, 8-man rankings, top rankings stands.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're going to see some losses here next couple of weeks between Worth County, Albany, North Andrew, King City, where you're going to see a team that's 4-3 going to week 8, and we're like, yeah, we still think they're the 8th best team in the state because their 3 losses are to 3 of those 4 teams kind of deal, and they were all kind of close kind of deals. So that's where I'm kind of at. If Stanberry is your 5th best team in your conference, with the guys they have there with Tucker Schieber and Gavin Cameron, your conference is pretty darn tough. And even like Pattonsburg, we saw this past week, they played with North Andrew for a little bit there, and they got King City this Saturday. That's not a walk in the park this year for King City like it was last year for the Wildcats on there. It's an interesting matchup, kind of a strength versus weakness on both sides kind of deal with King City with their power rushing attack, and then Pattonsburg going to spread King City out a little bit. And the one weakness of the King City defense is their back end kind of deal and stopping the pass. So I think it's really interesting what this happened in the GRC next few weeks, and then we'll see some interesting matchups in that conference coming up here in a little bit with Platte Valley, Albany, and East Ashton, Stanberry to kind of get some of the 275 conference teams mixed in that as well. So the 2 top teams over there. So the lot to still sort out here. And again, these rankings are kind of the way I use my rankings is who do I think could win state at this point, who I think would win versus each other. It's a mixture of past results and future projections, which is where the injuries do kind of come into effect with that. But, I mean, as we've kind of said all year, top 4 or 5 teams, a pretty good gap to the next 3 or 4, and then the next 8 teams in there or so are all kind of bundled together and kind of pick your flavor of team you like.
Also,
So that
yeah,
kind of
shout out to Pattonsburg. I got through most of that game, and the Iddings kid is a baller.
Mhm.
I mean, North Andrew knocked the shit out of him constantly, and he just kept chucking the ball. I was really impressed. They may, and you got to be careful if I don't think not the top of the GRC, but if you're towards the middle, you got to take that team seriously because
Oh, yeah.
they have the spunk. They could knock some teams off if you're not careful.
So we've talked about Worth County, North Andrew, Drexel, Archie. It's the 2 teams I think I'm most intrigued by at this point may be Albany and Platte Valley. I mean, East Ashton's still sitting there 3-0. We don't know a ton about them yet, but is this the year that Platte Valley I think surprised a lot of people last year. Is this the year that there's expectations on them now, or is this still a year where they're proving what they can be in the upper echelon? Because last year I don't think many people saw what they were going to do and end up doing that.
Well, I was talking to Silkit a bit today, and we had that conversation where I told him like there's no sneaking up. Not only not sneaking up, but there are teams in the GRC that want you, and they want to play you and beat you. So there's no sneaking up for Platte Valley. And while they're probably upset about where they're ranked, it's going to be hard for them to play that underdog card this year because there are teams that really, really want to beat them. So,
I mean, yeah, last year they kind of started 3-2, a loss to South Holt, COVID loss to Rockport, kind of deal with that, and they had kind of a slow starting team. And they started rattling off wins versus Albany. Then they had the bottom half of the 275. We're like, is Platte Valley actually good, or are they just kind of getting a soft schedule here to kind of get things right? And then they beat East Atchison, who we thought was a really good team last year in the season finale. And that was kind of that between that and their playoff win versus North Andrew woke everybody up to how good Platte Valley is at football here recently with what Johnny's done there to turn things around. So I know Anthony and I were both really high on Platte Valley coming into the year, telling people I get talked about down south, like who's good up north? North Andrew, Worth County, Platte Valley. Like they were in that conversation. And when you get started included in that conversation, there are more expectations on you, even if you're a team that's struggled to be above 500 over the last decade and a half kind of deal between Platte Valley and South Nottoway. You actually have talent now. You have a good coach. You have a winnable conference. There are expectations for you to succeed and complete that kind of deal. So I'm excited to see what they do with those expectations and actually go from the hunter to the hunted, as Anthony was talking earlier. And that's a very interesting matchup, especially with Albany next 2 weeks playing Worth County, then Platte Valley. It's a nice little gauge there for Platte Valley to see where they're actually at with the other big dogs in 8-man football.
Good show to hear on this one, guys. Final thoughts kind of heading into week number 4. We've touched on quite a bit in the upper part of the rankings. And I mean, I think things are starting to shake themselves out, kind of maybe what we thought we would see just based off talent level, schedules, and everything like that at this point.